thing, yeah. Like, I think that as long as you're not like severely compromised, you should be able to, right? Remember JF saying that he's going to fuck a bunch of girls all the way up the East Coast? The problem with JF wasn't that he just wanted to fuck a bunch of girls. The problem with JF is that, one, the particular girl that he picked out was actually so mentally deficient that a court order got her to have like a permanent guardianship from her parents because she couldn't live her life on her own, number one. And number two was that JF was trying to get this girl to move cross country to get her away from her family and live with him so that he could put a baby in her as soon as possible. Those are all JF's explicit words. Like, he said all of that. None of that is like a secret. Like, he said all of that. It's a very, very, very different situation than just even like just like a 30 or 40-year-old guy fucking a 20-year-old guy. It was a really, really, really different, weird, creepy fucking situation.
Hallo, 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 Test 1, 2, 3.
The baby. Yeah.
Test 1, 2, 3.
But anyway, yeah. What's up?
So, yeah, I guess it's challenging. Should we let schizophrenic people vote?
Hallo, 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 Test 1, 2, 3.
Can they make decisions at all, I guess? And that's like, you know, the most extreme example I guess you can get. I think that's like classically the most like, I don't want to say off your rocker, but the most
Hallo,
like
hallo, hallo, Test 1, 2, 3.
normal, I don't know, baseline type of thing you can have. So the other thing here is, you know, as far as Mr. Girl goes, after your thing with Anna, he, like, is she trying to say that, like, is he trying to say that, like, Anna is, like, schizophrenic, like, unable to consent?
If I had to be as good faith as possible, which he doesn't deserve, I think the issue with Anna is that he thinks that I'm publicly attacking her at the same time that I'm privately talking to her. So I'm coming to my screen with Anna, Anna's fucking insane. She's fucking insane. But then behind the scenes, I'm like sexually courting her or whatever. That's if I'm being as good faith as possible, then that would be like the Steelman version of his criticism.
Hallo, 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 Test 1, 2, 3.
With this, and being realistic here, is that Anna is not doing you any favors here. Because she's completely flip-flopping like a crazy person would. Like, when she talks to Mr. Girl, it's like the worst possible shit she could ever say, or when she talks to Lab about you, it's like, yeah.
So here's if you want like the guide to Anna, like this is how you can get Anna to like say or do anything you want. If you go to Anna and you basically say, here are things that people are saying about you that you really don't like, what are we gonna do? Like, that'll basically send her into a thing to say anything. That's like her obsession. And this is another thing that, I don't know if Mr. Girl's admitted this yet, but there's another thing that drives a lot of people, is a lot of people think that Anna is like obsessed with me and wants to, I think even you probably said this, she wants to like be in a relationship with me and get rid of Melina, blah, 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 and that's like Anna's whole thing. It's not. All Anna wants is for there to not be people saying things on the internet about her like being a stalker or whatever. Or like being obsessed or crazy. If all of that, sure, we don't have to get it, but I'm saying that if all of that went away, then that's like always like her fascination. And you can tell.
I just don't agree. But
okay, yeah, that's fine. But all of the evidence supports me. She has never ever said anything negative about Melina unless Melina's talking shit about her. She never gave any inkling about being jealous about any other girls or anything like that. She was friends with Melina for a while after I had my big OCD talk with her, and she talked with Melina. They were like super cool.
Hallo, 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 Test 1, 2, 3. Hallo, 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 Test 1, 2, 3.
so she's sexting with you when she's dating you guys?
Usually, when I say dating, I mean she's like going on dates. Sorry. People use that word.
While she's going on dates, she's sexting with you.
That's not a problem. Wait, what do you think dating means?
No, I don't think we need to get into that. Just let's...
No, wait. Oh, no, wait.
Oh, no, sorry, I gotta move on.
Wait, no.
Sorry, we gotta move on. Oh, look at that. Time to move on to another.
Okay, sorry, hold on. There's two types of dating. Dating is like I'm in an exclusive relationship with a guy, and dating is just like, oh, like I'm like I saw a guy for a date or I did or whatever. That's what I'm talking about. She's not like exclusive with some dude and we're like chatting or whatever. That's okay. Hi.
You know, you full muted yourself. I couldn't hear you or anything you said.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, I actually, you know what? I align with Mr. Girl right now. You know, that is not okay. You are not allowed to censor what I have to say about this situation.
Gotcha. Sounds good.
You're a broken man. Unfixable.
Gotcha.
Don't you gotcha me? I know what that means, okay? All these other Tier 4 subs might not understand, but I understand what it means. I've been here since the creation of gotcha. And thanks to anything else. Alright, love you, bye.
Give me a call, let me know what a little bitch I am.
Nice.
I wouldn't do it like that. Just, you know.
Well,
Because a man's life is on the line right now. A man's life is on the line now. And for what? Some innocent sex with a slightly...
To be clear, I don't think Anna is anything that Dan just said.
Wait, you don't think she's interesting?
You said you were implying something malicious, and I don't believe those things.
So she's not interesting. Got it.
She's not. I know what you're implying, man. Okay, that's my queen, and I won't let anyone disrespect her. Okay, you, Dan. Okay, anyways, alright. What? Oh, okay. Good luck, buddy.
Thank you. So, I just got a message. Somebody asked me to ask you.
Go.
If you hate.
You seem not as dumb as the last guy, but you're below the 50% threshold. I'll put you at 41%.
Christ.
40. I get that. I feel like tonight, based on what we see, you could be pushing. You could be pushing double digits.
You're at 40. You're at 42 right now. But I'm being a lot less charitable towards people now that I've gotten supremely fucked by Lad and Mr. Girl. So you gotta work hard to earn those choices. But don't worry, you can do it. It's not possible. You're still here.
Alright, Destiny and
Also, wait. Your wallpaper you have, because your chat can't see this, but we can. So right now you have you have horses as your wallpaper. You're sharing your desktop. And it says unban Mr. Girl. That's too much. Okay, I understand that you like this guy. You need to live your own life. Do not be this. Stop. No, it's not healthy. It wouldn't be healthy for Steve. It's not healthy for you to live through someone this much. You have more to offer yourself. You know, it's content. It's enjoyment. It's nice to relax, be a moderator, be part of the community. But that's too much. Okay.
Have him as a wallpaper?
Yeah, my wallpaper says YouTube unban Mr. Girl because I made a video about him being banned, and I thought it wouldn't take this long, but I said that I'd keep it up until he got unbanned from YouTube.
Okay.
Or at least until we get a definitive answer. And a man's only as good as his word, Dan.
True.
Okay, let me tell you something right now. If he never gets unbanned, can we both agree that you're not going to have this wallpaper? You're not going to be like 65 years old.
I said if we get a definitive answer.
On what? You're not going to get that either. Well, if everything stays the same, you think you're going to be 65 years old with YouTube unban Mr. Girl wallpaper? Of course not. So the morals will compromise at some point.
Sure. I think there's going to be a certain point where I understand that it's not going to happen and it will come down. Yes.
Okay.
And I hope that people that heard me say that understand that there's an implication that I'm not retarded and I can understand this.
Okay, good. That's an important thing to do. Too many people are... You can't be black and white with morals and all this type of stuff. That's a fluid social
Pretty
construct.
strict with them, but I'm also not fucking stupid.
Well,
so
you gotta tell that to Max. He said he wouldn't kill Hitler. Or sorry, he wouldn't mind rape Hitler. Ask him why.
Why wouldn't you mind rape Hitler? All right, you guys got quite a few questions on.
It's to obfuscate, but then you just said on my behalf. Every time I introduce nuance, you say I'm obfuscating, but that's not true.
It's weird for you to say contradiction is evidence of obfuscation when we're literally arguing about whether or not I'm contradicting myself. That's the subject of the debate. I don't think that defining a word in two...
zu einem neuen Video auf meinem Kanal. Eher gesagt ein Tutorial-Video. Heute soll es darum gehen, wie stelle ich denn in OBS beispielsweise ein, dass ich Noise Gate habe. Vielleicht wissen viele von euch nicht, was ein Noise Gate ist. Ein Noise Gate ist einfach nur dafür da, wie das auch schon das Wort sozusagen sagt. Das ist sowas wie eine Barriere, was sagt, okay, ab hier lasse ich alles durch. Alles, was drunter ist, beispielsweise, bleibt weg. Und damit meine ich den Ton. Und darauf gehen wir jetzt genauer ein. Deswegen bleibt dran. Bis gleich. So Leute, wir sind jetzt hier in OBS drin und ich denke mal, ihr habt alles schon gut eingestellt und ihr habt auch ganz viele Szenen und ihr könnt schon alles gut streamen. Falls ihr natürlich nicht streamen könnt oder ihr wisst noch gar nicht, wie OBS funktioniert, dann geht hier oben in die Ecke. Da wird jetzt ein i eingeblendet. Dort könnt ihr nochmal schauen, wie ihr euren Stream einrichtet. Je nachdem natürlich ganz variabel. Wir fangen aber jetzt hier an mit unserem Mikrofon. Es geht nämlich darum, wie ihr hier unten schon seht, im Audiomixer. Es geht um das Noise Gate. Noise Gate ist meiner Meinung nach eines der wichtigsten Feature, was ich einbauen würde in den Stream. Eventuell sogar der Kompressor. Können wir am Ende des Videos vielleicht noch mal ein bisschen drauf eingehen. Aber es geht im Ganzen hier um diesen Mikrofonpegel. Wie ihr seht, wenn ich rede, schlägt der Pegel aus. Immer. Ob ich rede oder auch nicht rede. Deswegen rede ich jetzt mal kurz nicht. Ihr hört im Hintergrund Musik, die ist aber nicht eingespielt. Deswegen achtet auf den Mikrofon. Selbst wenn ich nichts mache, schlägt das Mikrofon aus. Und vielleicht, falls ihr so, ich sag mal, nervige Personen draußen vor eurem Fenster habt, wie bei mir zu Hause, ist das sehr hilfreich, weil draußen schreien die Kinder rum bei mir. Da kann man relativ wenig machen, außer dass man natürlich sagt, okay, ich baue ein Noise Gate ein und es wirklich nur noch ab beispielsweise einem Pegel von 35 ausschlägt. Deswegen alles, was über minus 35 ist, das heißt minus 40, minus 50 Dezibel, sagt Noise Gate, nein, das kommt nicht durch. Wie ihr nochmal seht, hier steht immer einwandfrei aus. Wenn wir jetzt auf den Audiomixer draufgehen, auf die Einstellung, also hier auf dieses Rädchen neben unserem Mikrofon, das ist übrigens für jede Line einzeln. Das heißt, ihr könnt das für euer Desktop-Audio machen, ihr könnt das für euer Mikrofon machen, ihr könnt das für euren Ingame machen, falls ihr hier noch eine neue Line habt.
Hallo. Hallo. 30.
Wir gehen jetzt erstmal hier auf dieses Zahnrädchen neben unserem Mikrofon und gehen auf Filter. Dann öffnet sich hier ein neues Fenster für die Filter. Dort sehen wir jetzt ein leeres Fenster hier auf der linken Seite. Das werden unsere Audiofilter werden dort angezeigt. Haben wir aber noch keine. Die werden wir aber jetzt hinzufügen. Dafür klickt ihr einfach hier unten auf dieses Plus. Und dann klappt nochmal so ein kleines Dropdown-Menü auf. Und dort seht ihr nochmal ein paar Filter. Ja, beispielsweise Noise Gate, Kompressor, Gain, Expander. Gibt viele Sachen. Vielleicht für manche Sachen müsstet ihr euch nochmal genauer drauf informieren. Aber ich gehe jetzt genauer nur auf das Noise Gate ein. Weil Noise Gate meiner Meinung nach eines der wichtigsten Features ist, was ihr im Stream bei euch haben solltet, eingestellt haben solltet. So, wir klicken einfach auf Noise Gate drauf, wenn ihr das auswählen wollt. Und dann fragt er uns nach einen Namen, wie wir den Filter nennen wollen. Und da machen wir jetzt einfach mal Noise Gate. Ja, da war ja schon vorgeschrieben, aber deswegen schreiben wir Noise Gate, okay, wir schreiben YouTube. Wir klicken auf OK und dann sehen wir hier diese schöne Anzeige. Und hier sehen wir auch nochmal schön, das machen wir mal ein bisschen neben dran, dass ihr beides seht. Wahrscheinlich so wäre es am besten für euch, dass ihr es seht. Hier seht ihr unten drunter diese Dezibelzahlen. 0 bis minus 60.
Ja.
Hier haben wir einmal den
Hallo.
Schließungsschwellwert, einmal den Öffnungsschwellwert. Das heißt, ab wann schließt er, ab wann öffnet er. Das heißt, wenn ich jetzt nichts rede, beispielsweise jetzt, wenn ich nicht mehr rede, dann wird wirklich der Ton nichts sein. Mein Mikrofon wird stumm sein, außer ich rede natürlich, weil ich natürlich lauter als 32 Dezibel bin, sozusagen, ja. Oder lauter als minus 26 Dezibel.
Hallo.
Deswegen,
Hallo.
gucken wir mal, wenn ich jetzt tippe.
Hallo.
Nur, dass ihr, ich muss nebenbei aber reden, weil sonst ist das rein theoretisch. Achtet auf den Ausschlag nochmal unten vom Mikrofon.
vorgestellt habe, nicht mehr übertragen. Und das sind solche Sachen, mein Ton von der Tastatur. Und der wird eigentlich, wenn ich das vorgestellt habe, nicht mehr übertragen. Und das sind solche Sachen, die sollte man haben, sage ich jetzt einfach mal. Wenn ihr ein Dual-PC-Set wird das Ganze nicht funktionieren. Aber hier müsst ihr eigentlich nicht mehr viel einstellen, außer beispielsweise ihr werdet abgehackt oder er lässt das zu langsam Zeit. Dann könnt ihr hier ein bisschen ausprobieren an den Werten.
Probiert euch einfach rum, wie es bei euch am besten passt mit dem Schließungswert, mit dem Öffnungswert. Ist ganz variabel, immer je nach Geräusche, je nach Mikrofon. Es ist immer ganz unterschiedlich. Deswegen unbedingt selber
Hallo.
testen, wie es bei euch ist. So Leute, das war es auch schon mit dem Tutorial, was wir über das Noise Gate sozusagen hatten jetzt. Ich werde vielleicht nochmal
two different contexts in different ways is contradiction, but you do. But that's fine that we disagree.
Hello.
You can say our disagreement there is evidence that you're wrong. Well, hold on, that's
Hello.
what we're arguing about.
It started out as you asking me, I thought my thought process for what makes me say something like, I think you're out.
Use them in Black Fathers.
You said, how do you determine that versus introducing nuance? You asked me, is there a difference? I said,
Yep.
yes. Right? And then I'm going through my thought process, but now you're turning my thought process not just into a one bullet point of it, not just into a claim I'm making generally, which I'm not, into a claim I'm making about a specific point of your choosing now. But
You
I
can
didn't say
choose
that.
your own example if you want. I just want to go. I just want to get it clear.
You just tried to choose it for me.
Okay, I'm so sorry, Max. You can choose.
I don't want an apology. I'm just pointing out that, like,
Yeah,
I feel
I'm
like
giving a hypothetical
I feel like
example to try to test your thing. But if you don't like my example, you can say Destiny. This is disanalogous for this reason. Or Steven, this is disanalogous for this reason. Let me use this example instead. You could just give that example instead of saying you're being bad faith by giving an example. So you can provide your own example if you'd like. Go ahead.
Okay. I think that it is. Do you want me to give you an example of you contradicting yourself and
Yeah.
why I think it was obfuscation?
Sure. Well, if you can't think of a particular
think-
one, give an example of it. You don't have to.
Well, I
remember
think it
everything.
is I think it is self-contradictory to claim that you have no control over the definition of the word Nazi in your fan base or in your community, and then to also claim that the reason you don't exert control over it is because you don't care, and then also give a bunch of examples of times where you did exert control over the word Nazi in your community. Those to me, all those stances all contradict them. Each other.
Okay. Tell me if this series of statements implies a contradiction. Okay?
Okay.
So, number one, I can't control people's engagement with media outside of my community. Do you agree with that?
I don't think you can totally control it, but I think you have a lot of sway over how your community views the media. For example, like with Kyle Rittenhouse. I think that you could basically control how people who follow you interpret other people talking about Kyle Rittenhouse, if they're big fans of yours.
Okay, I'm going to ask this again. I can't control my community's engagement with political content outside of mine. I might be able to say, like, you could maybe look at it this way or that way, but they can watch stuff other than me, right? And they can take opinions outside of my. I am not their media diet 100%.
No, but you can control what they see when they see the same thing.
I don't
If
know
you
what
tell
that
them
means.
what to-
If somebody turns my stream off and they go watch Hassan or Vosh, I've lost control of that viewer for a bit.
No, you can totally control the narrative about other streamers and figures. If the person is like a huge fan of yours, you can absolutely color their view of anything you want.
Can't
So I don't-
other
I agree-
people
I agree.
color their view of me? Couldn't Vosh or Hassan color one of my viewers' views of me?
Not the same way that you no, when somebody is a fan or a super fan of yours, like it doesn't matter what anybody else says about you.
Okay, so the people in my subreddit that are on your side, of which there were many threads this morning, are those? I lost all of those people as fans. They're not my fans anymore.
No, they are your fans. This is a like them viewing you as evasive or whatever. They're still fans of yours.
Okay,
though.
so
They-
then
they still
in
love
this
you
sense,
and-
another content creator, another figure, has influenced their views
Hello?
in a way outside of my control.
okay, you just said like an hour ago on stream. You said
why are we-
you cannot. You said you cannot tell how people actually felt about the argument with me anymore because you went over it on stream. You said, once I go over something on stream, that colors my audience's perception of it so much that I no longer can even ask them what they think.
Okay, this is not a contradiction to anything that I'm saying right now. So I want to ask the first question. We can deal with that subject later if you want. I'm going to ask again. Okay. I can't believe that you're not willing to give this point. I do not control 100% of my viewers' media digest. I can't do that. They watch other stuff besides me sometimes.
Yes,
Okay?
you do not 100% control it.
Okay. I can't control how words are used in other communities. Do you agree with that?
I think you can influence how words are used in some other communities, but you don't have total control over it. I agree with that.
Okay. I don't have control how words are used in other communities. I don't control how Vosh or Hassan uses words.
That's true.
Okay.
Hallo.
I can't control how... I can speak up when I think a word is used incorrectly in my community. When somebody's watching me, right? I can do that.
Yes.
Okay. And then the fourth claim, probably the most contentious,
Hallo, wie
maybe the one we'll
geht's
fight over the
dir?
most,
Ist es so gut oder ist es
I
shit?
can't remove
Sag mal
all
was.
context or all understanding that people have of a word outside of my community.
You cannot remove all context. Of course not.
So, for instance, I very much feel like pedophile means attraction to a prepubescent person. I'm not choosing this for you, but this is one that might come in. Okay.
Hey.
I think that pedophile means attraction to a prepubescent person. Period. Full stop. That's what pedophile means to me. But there's probably a lot of people in my community that would still say like, oh, a 30-year-old attracted to a 16-year-old is a 16-year-old is a pedophile. There's still probably a lot of people that would say that, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I'm going to run through these one more time. I can't control my community's engagement with political content outside of my community. Maybe I can influence the way they view it when they come back into my community and I go over whatever, but I can't control, like, if they go watch Vosh or Hassan or something, I have no control of them in that time period. They're off watching something else, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I can't control how words are used in those other communities. So if Vosh uses fascist for whatever reason, I have no control over that. Yeah?
I think you can influence it indirectly, but no, you don't have direct total control over it.
I can speak up in my community when I think a word is used incorrectly. Okay, yeah?
Yeah.
I can't, and then four is I can't totally redefine a word in my community. I can push for how I want something to be viewed, but I can't totally like rewrite everybody's brains in my community. They're still going to have a whole bunch of external context for what words means, and I can't control that 100%. I can push them in a certain direction.
Yeah, any of these would be an absurd claim to make.
Okay.
That you have total control over any of these things. Also, the last point of self-contradiction was that you don't care.
Okay. Given all four of these premises, I'm going to reread your statement that you say is full of contradictions. So you're saying that I'm making the self-contradictory claim that I have no control over the word, over the definition of the word Nazi in your community. So I think this is dealt with in a way in premise 2 and 3, that in my community, people are bringing with them preconceived notions of Nazi into my community, and I don't have control of that fully, and I can't rewrite that fully. So when I say, if we want to be charitable to me, I'm not going to say I don't have no control over the definition, but I can't rewrite that completely.
Well, which is it? Because I didn't make the claim that you can rewrite it completely.
Okay,
I just think I think you have a large degree of control over how the word Nazi is used in your community.
Okay. I need you to apply the basest level of charitability to what I'm saying. Okay, because you're treating me like an unmitigated retard. Do you think that I would say that I have absolutely no control over what anybody in my community says? Do you think I would ever make a statement like that?
No, but you came kind of close last night. I think you said I can't control what my community says, how my community defines this word. And then when I pressed you on it, you said, well, I don't care. I don't care to define it in a certain way. And then I said, well, what about all these other statements you're making where you are defining it in a certain way?
Okay, we're going to dive into these statements because they're proving everything I've said.
Okay.
When I say this sentence, I can't control how my community defines a word, what do you mean by that? Because I can read this, and in the context of what I know about me, and what you should know about me, and what everybody knows about me, I think there's a very obvious way to read that statement. You tell me what you think that statement means. When I say, I can't control how my community defines a word.
I think my problem with it is that there are, I did not interpret you as meaning 100% control. And I don't think you interpreted me as meaning 100% control. I don't think either of us thought that the other person meant that. And
Okay.
yet, in your counterexample here, you're asking me, do I have 100% control? Which I don't think is relevant because I don't think that's what either of us meant. So I assume, when I say you have control over how people use this word, I assumed you know that I mean you have a large degree of control. That you're not going to see a DGGer saying pedophile the same way a Vosh fan does because of you, because you have changed how they think of that word.
Potentially.
Okay.
Okay. But
So
focusing on this,
reasonable, general
I
amount of
can't
control.
So when I say I can't control how my community defines a word, what do you think I'm probably saying there? Just talk about this statement. I can't control how my community defines a word. What do you think I mean when I say this?
I think this is my problem, I guess. It sounds like, I guess my immediate thought is compared to what? So if you're saying I don't have total control, that's obvious, but then it doesn't mean anything. If you're saying I only have some control, then I'm obviously imploring you to use whatever control you do have to this effect.
Okay, now,
And
this
if you're
is an
saying you have
argument.
no control, that's
this is
obviously
good.
not true.
That's fine. That statement is an argument that we can actually work with and build off of. Okay?
Okay.
Accusing me of saying I have no control makes me look like an idiot. And then it feels like you're implying that I can have a high degree of control. And I think that makes you look like an idiot. But this statement that, like, you can exert some control, even though a lot of it is outside of your control. Now we have this is something that we can discuss, okay?
But this is why I'm accusing you of obfuscating.
I am being incredibly clear here. If anybody's obfuscated thus far, you're the one giving the evasive answers. But after all of this talking, now we've gotten to a point that I think is actually an interesting discussion, which is there are people that use words in ways that I disagree with outside of my community. And you agreed that I can't control how words are used in other communities. And you agreed that I can speak up when a word is used incorrectly in my community. But you also agree that I can't totally redefine a word in my community. So then the question becomes, what is the struggle that you're willing to take, and is the payoff worth it? Because we both agree that I can exert some influence. Yeah. I agree with that, and you agree with that. We both also agree that a lot of it is out of my control because I can't control other communities, and I can't control how words are defined, and I can't totally redefine them in my community, right? So the question is, how much do you want to struggle against that? And that is an interesting conversation. Go ahead.
The reason I'm saying you're obfuscating is that I don't believe that you possibly could have thought I meant anything else last night. You don't think I meant that you have total control, and you don't think that I thought you meant you have zero control.
The problem is that when I would bring up an example, and when I would say, these words are used so far, they have so many different meanings now, I don't want to struggle against all of those other external meanings. I don't want to sit here and have to redefine or try to define Nazi, rapist, homophobe, whatever, in my own stream. You would always say, well, are you saying you have no control over the words? Are you saying that the community is outside of your control? You can't guide them at all?
I knew you weren't saying that.
Okay, well, that's what it felt like to me as an emotional retard creature. That was what I was hearing over and over and over again.
I don't think you're
correct. You didn't say I was retarded. You said worse. You assumed that I was being malicious. So it's even worse than being dumb. You assumed that I was being intentionally bad faith by saying gaslighting and evasiveness.
I'm going to settle on semi-intentional.
Okay.
But my sense is now that if you really wanted us to have a shared understanding of what I mean when I say you have control over how your community uses the word Nazi or how they think of the word Nazi, I think that you would offer back a good faith interpretation of that statement. You would say, okay, so you're saying I generally have a lot of influence over how people use the word Nazi in my community. Got it. And I would say, sure. Like, I'd be pretty amenable to that. Like, do you really think I'm going to counter that with saying, no, Stephen. I'm saying you have total 100% control over how
I do think you would try to nail me down that, because the issue that I'm having, and this is why I was writing down and trying.
Insane.
You're saying that, but I think it's insane of you. You don't know. I need you to admit this. You don't know if Nick is a Nazi inside of his mind. You can't know that. It's that information is by definition inaccessible to you. You don't know that, right? But when you're you're trying to nail down on me, like, do you think he would do this? Do you think he's nice? It's like, fuck, man, I don't know. Mate, what about in his ideal world? I don't know what his ideal world would. Maybe you're accusing me of being weaselly every time I refuse to stake out a hard position here. So when you say, like, can you redefine a word? Can you do this? Like, I don't know if you're asking for a one. That's not why. I don't. Hold on. That's not. I'm just saying that from my perspective, you're trying to nail me down on these ultra rigid positions where it's like, Jesus, I don't even fucking know, like, if he was in power, if he could get the power, what he would do. I'm not sure 100%. So when I'm not taking these 100% positions, it feels like you're attacking me for it. So I don't know what you mean when you're asking me to, like, redefine words or fight for words, or you're giving me examples of how I can, like, change some words, whatever. That's what I'm trying to figure out by writing your responses down and then ask you questions to test it.
Okay. I disagree with your statement that I'm calling you weaselly for not taking a firm stance. That's not why. I don't even call you weaselly, but that's not why I'm accusing you of obfuscating.
True. You called me cowardly, spineless, and says I wasn't equipped for the conversation, and that I was gaslighting. I think those are the words you used, but not weaselly. Go ahead.
I think I called all streamers cowardly and spineless.
It was in the context of that conversation related to these topics, so it was very specifically aimed at me. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, are you saying you're mad or hurt that I used those terms, or are you asking me to defend my stance?
No, I'm not mad or hurt. I'm frustrated because once these words are brought out, the argument ends. We can't have a back and forth anymore because now you're telling me what I think and you're not listening to what I'm saying because you've already decided, oh, he's lying about this. He's being bad faith.
But the implication of that is that you never obfuscate, but maybe you do.
The problem is we're having an incredibly complicated conversation about incredibly broad political labels that I believe 90% of people could not accurately identify today. And you're saying, oh, you're not giving a rigid definition of this, you're obfuscating. I'm not obfuscating. I'm just acknowledging the hardcore political realities that we live in today.
That's not why I'm saying you're obfuscating.
Why are you saying I'm obfuscating? Okay, I'm sorry, hold on. I'm writing this down, word for word.
Okay.
Why am I obfuscating?
I think you are straw manning me with a completely untenable position by saying that if I say you have control over how your community defines this word, I must be saying you have 100% control over how your community uses the word.
Okay.
I also
so this is what it. Well, hold on. Okay. So you think I'm strawmanning you with an untenable position by saying that if you're claiming that I have control over how my community defines a word, you must be saying that I have 100% control over community defines a word. So in my mind, I feel like we're fighting about the interesting conversation, which is a struggle of how much effort should I put into this versus not. So I feel like I'm giving an example where I'm saying, well, there's a lot of external ways that these words are defined as well that are out of my control. And then your response is, no, you can control it in your community. When you say that as a response, so there's two responses. You can either say that, no, you can control it in your community. That makes it sound like a binary position. But if you were to respond to me instead and you were to say, well, yeah, there is a lot of external content there that you can't deal with, but like, I think it's worth it for you to fight against that in your community, even if it's not a 100% thing, to try to like maintain some like level of, and you're gonna have to fight for it all the time, of this word's definition of community. Like a response like that would be like, okay, well, let's talk about how much we should fight for the definition. But that's not what it felt like when I was pushing back for these are why I don't fight 100% on these things. It sounds like you were always giving me a counter. It's like, oh, so you're saying this, or oh, well, you don't think that. Well, no, that made it felt like it was binary from you. That's the feeling.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we both know that I would never say I have no control and I have total control. Both of those things are false. We both know that both of us, I would hope in this conversation, think both of those statements are false, right?
It feels like a derailment when you even introduce either of those concepts, because neither you're not going to say you have zero control, and I'm not going to say you have total control. So, and this is the same thing with whether Nick is a Nazi. It's the same. I feel like it's the same obfuscation. What I'm asking you is, what is your personal assessment? Is he a Nazi? Is he not a Nazi? Or do you not know? But when I press you on that at different times, I get different answers. That feels like the obfuscation. If you just said, I don't know, and I don't care, then I'm not going to say you're obfuscating then. I'm not trying to reach into your mind and say that like you're contradicting your inner thoughts. I'm saying the things you are saying are contradicting other things you're saying, and then you're positioning me as being unhappy that you don't know the answer to my question or that you won't take a firm stance. My problem is that you are taking multiple contradictory yet also kind of firm stances and introducing confusion. I think the confusion serves to give you a defense of how you're handling Fuentes, but it also serves as a defense of him. And I think that by saying that I'm unhappy that you don't have a firm, that you can't read his mind, like that's such a crazy straw man. No, I'm not saying you should read his mind or that reading minds is possible. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying based on all the information you have about him, I think it's kind of important for you to make an assessment of whether or not he's like a genocidal crazy person who wants to kill people if he comes to power, or to whatever extent you think that is true. I do think you need to assess that.
Okay, here's what's happening, okay?
Okay, all right.
You're saying, is he a Nazi? And I'm saying, I'm not sure. And you're pointing out, well, you said he was a Nazi here. You said he was a Nazi here. Here you joke that he's a Nazi. Here you allude to him being a Nazi. Here you say he's not a Nazi, and right now you won't call him a Nazi. And you're saying that I'm obfuscating by not answering the question. Is that a fair summary of what you're saying?
Yes, but I just want to, again, be clear that my problem is that all those statements contradict each other, not your current answer or your current thinking.
Sure. Okay. And my assertion is none of those statements are contradictory. But the problem is we're fighting over the statement, is he a Nazi? And you think that the question you're asking me is Nick Fuentes a Nazi? That's not the question that I'm dealing with. The question I'm dealing with is, what is a Nazi? That's the question. Insofar as a Nazi is a strictly defined term, I can clearly compare it to Nick's stated positions and figure out whether or not he is or is not a Nazi. So for instance, if we go by the definition of he was part of the National Socialist Party, he's not a Nazi. If we go by the definition of has some vague anti-Semitic beliefs and is fascist, he might be a Nazi or is a Nazi. If we go by this or that...
Do you think his anti-Semitic beliefs are vague?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because he doesn't currently advocate for genocide or ethno-states. He doesn't currently advocate for, well, it depends now on how we define anti-Semitic, I guess. Anti-Semitic in reference to Nazi, or anti-Semitic in terms of like, just doesn't like Jewish people?
Whatever you meant when you used the word.
Well, if you don't know, hold on.
Definition.
If you don't know what I meant when I used the word, then for you to say, well, don't you think he is that, when you don't even know what I mean when I say that, I'm not saying disingenuous intention from your part, but you're asking me an empty question. You don't actually even know what I'm saying at that point.
One of us is being disingenuous when that exchange happens. I agree, and we both think it's the other.
I don't think we're both being disingenuous. I think that we both have in our mind an understanding of what anti-Semitic means. That's the whole point of this conversation.
I think you're being disingenuous when you say he has vague anti-Semitic beliefs.
Do you agree?
I believe that you have a definition of anti-Semitic, and you have a definition of specific, and I believe that Fuentes' beliefs meet both of those criteria.
Okay. Do you believe that different opinions of what could be anti-Semitism exist?
Absolutely.
Okay. So then if that's the case, when I ask, or when you ask, is Nick Fuentes anti-Semitic, we have to define that. If I just say yes or no, we could be both talking about different things, right?
We could, but I trust you to have a pretty reasonable definition of anti-Semitic.
No, not when we're literally debating the meanings of these words. These are the beetle in the boxes. You don't know what anti-Semitic means when I say it.
Okay, I think that's an obfuscation to say that that's what we're doing.
Okay, here's a question. Is somebody that makes an anti-Semitic joke an anti-Semite?
No.
Okay, is somebody that thinks that Jewish people have a disproportionate outlay of control of media or entertainment in the United States anti-Semitic?
It depends how much time they spend thinking about that, but if just thinking that, no.
Okay. Is somebody that believes that Israel has an unfair treatment of Palestinians anti-Semitic?
No.
Is somebody that is anti-Zionist, so they don't support like the nation of Israel, or they believe that Israelis engage in apartheid against Palestinians, are they anti-Semitic?
No.
Is somebody that wants to curb the influence, the disproportionate influence that Jewish people have over media, are those people anti-Semitic?
Yes.
Starting to get there, yeah.
Okay, starting to get there. So I think that the anti-Semitism that I've seen... one final question. Is somebody that makes anti-Semitic jokes an anti-Semite?
I think it depends on the context or how often. At some point, if you keep making anti-Semitic jokes, at some point I'm going to start thinking of you as hating Jews. Yeah.
Sure. So,
but I don't agree that this is the conversation. Like,
well, hold on,
I feel like this whole line.
This is the conversation. You don't want to have.
I don't agree.
I know.
You're wrong.
About
what
you're
the
wrong.
Conversation is.
This is the conversation.
Okay.
Because you're saying you're asking me.
To make this clear that I don't.
That's fine that you think that.
You're doing.
You're asking me is somebody X, and I'm telling you we need to define X, and now we're walking through now, and you can see how complicated it is to define X.
I don't think I don't agree. I guess
you're wrong though. This isn't a agree or disagree.
So it's up to you.
You're wrong.
It's up to you. It's up to you. I can either make my case for why I don't think this is the right conversation, why I think it's obfuscating to frame it this way, or we can stay in your frame and I'll continue down your line of questioning. I'm happy to go either way, but I do need to interject and say that I don't think this is right.
I'm trying to point out to you the futility of the initial question, is he a Nazi? The first qualifier we're getting to Nazi is anti-Semitism, and you've already admitted that who is considered anti-Semitic can be up for discussion. There's a broad range of what is considered anti-Semitic. If there's a broad range of what is anti-Semitic, there's probably a broad range of what is a Nazi, so asking the question, is he a Nazi, is by definition, is definitionally an open-ended question. But when I point out
I don't agree with that.
It logically follows. It's deductively true.
I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with your premise, and I don't agree with your framing. But if you want to keep asking about anti-Semitism, I will answer your question, and I will be patient, and I will not interrupt. But I do want to interject that I think you're obfuscating by even framing it this way.
Okay, I think it's going to be impossible to move me off of this framing, but if you make a very compelling argument, I can be moved. So go for it.
When I talk about the definitions of these words, I'm talking about your definition.
You don't know what my definition is on any of these words.
That's right. Absolutely. I don't. But I know you decently well, and I trust you to formulate a definition of anti-Semitism that I would probably agree with, or that I think has utility. I also trust you to formulate a definition of Nazi, pedophile, murderer, rapist. All these words are words that you use a lot. You run into other people using them. And 99% of the time when I hear you argue about them, I agree with you. So even if it's not going to be my definition, I'm talking about your definition. So whatever your definition is, I'm fine with you using in this conversation. I don't even need to know what it is, and I'm not even going to ask you what it is. Okay. If I said, is Nick Fuentes a Nazi, and you said no, that would mean a lot to me. I would probably ask you why you said that, but I wouldn't start picking apart your definition of Nazi. So the framing of again, we have an equal sign. We got anti-Semite on one side, and we got Nick Fuentes on the other. And the question is the equal sign deserved?
Yeah.
I'm saying you, in your heart, do you think Nick Fuentes is a Nazi however you define Nick Fuentes? However you define him being that? Is it his secret beliefs? Is it what he does? Is it what he says? Is it his effect on the world? Whatever. Is it his fan base? Whatever the fuck you want it to be, you can do whatever you want with it. And you can define Nazi however you want. But I think, so what I'm saying you have a moral imperative to do is not to agree with me that Nick Fuentes is a Nazi. It's to formulate an opinion of Nick Fuentes, formulate an opinion of Nazi, and then make a decision about how you're going to use these words or if you're not going to use these words. What's concerning to me is that you're using the word Nazi in a serious way, in a playful way. You're saying he is a Nazi and you're saying he isn't a Nazi. And my problem with this is I believe Nick Fuentes' game plan is to make it confusing whether he's a Nazi or not. And I believe that you are introducing the same confusion that unnecessarily
I understand.
by making it into a semantic argument.
Yes. Okay. Everything that you've laid out in this argument, I believe proves my paradigm and how I view the language being used. Okay. So, but you are, in my opinion, misrepresenting, not intentionally, but I think you're misrepresenting the strength of the words that you're using. So you say, for instance, is somebody a Nazi? The way that you define this Nazi word, or pedophile, or murderer, or rapist, is done in a tribalistic manner. You're not appealing to an objective definition of Nazi. You're telling me, I trust you, I know you, I think that we'll agree on the definitions roughly for these words. That's the problem, is that when different tribes of people are connecting on the internet, they've tribalistically determined what the definitions of some of these broader words are. If I talk to a lot of people on the right, things like groomer and pedophile are going to be broadly applied across the LGBT group because they also trust each other to have a tribalistic family way of defining these words. So when you ask me, I want you to formulate an opinion of Nick Fuentes, and I want you to formulate an opinion of all of these things to tell me like what you feel about these things. What I'm pushing back on is that that's fine, and if it's in a one-on-one conversation, maybe I'll say it, but in front of an audience, there's all sorts of different tribes butting up against each other with different definitions that are all different. So when you ask me, is somebody a Nazi, you're referring to 27 different things all at once. And I don't want to answer yes to that because I can't commit him to everybody's different definition of the word Nazi. We already had a conversation. We can't even agree on what anti-Semitism is. And you want me to agree on a definition of Nazi that I would hold somebody to publicly?
I don't want you to agree with other people. I want you to agree with yourself. Say your definition, and then that'll be it. And people will know what you meant when you said it, just like you gave the definition of the word pedophile.
That's not true.
Pedophile. You used the word pedophile just now.
If I was to,
wait, let me finish. Now who's interrupting who? You used the word pedophile just now, and you said, here's my definition of pedophile. Other people have different definitions of pedophile. This one is mine. And then you use the word. No ambiguity, no confusion. If there's 27 definitions, you just got rid of 26 of them, and then you're fine using the word. When it comes to the word Nazi and Nick Fuentes, you don't want to do that. And that's all I'm asking you to do, is have your definition, tell us what it is, and then use it.
Okay. That is not true. Everything you just said is not true. You're worried that he is going to play in my definition if I'm not willing to like stake out a moral position on it. What you just said, I just want you to say if he adheres to your definition of Nazi. Well, what if I define Nazi in a really strict sense and I say no? You're not going to be happy with that. You're going to have a problem with that, right?
I'm not going to have this problem with it. My problem is that you're obfuscating and creating confusion for Fuentes'
I understand.
benefit,
You've said this 50
and
million
for your own
times.
benefit.
Let me
then don't tell me I'm gonna. Don't then wait.
Okay.
Then when you say you're gonna have a problem with it, like yeah, I might not like it if you say the word Nazi is relegated to only describe people who are dead. We can never use it to describe somebody who's alive because if they were alive, they'd be over 120 and they would be the oldest person on Earth or something. Like yeah, if you're gonna use the word Nazi that strictly, I'm gonna have a problem with the utility of your definition. But that's a different problem than the problem I'm having. Your goal in the conversation is not to make me happy, and that's not what I'm asking you to do. That's an unfair framing. I'm asking you specifically to have a definition of Nazi, tell us what it is, and then have a definition of Fuentes, and tell us if you think he meets that definition. Or if you don't have a definition, just say you don't have a definition. Say, I don't know what a Nazi is and I don't want to use that word, and then stop using it.
Okay,
or
let's say
I have a definition, but I don't know what Nick Fuentes is. But my problem is you won't answer this clearly and consistently and concisely.
Okay, so you just want me to give you my definition of Nazi.
Yes.
And then say, okay. So I think that my definition of Nazi generally employs, number one, a high level of conspiratorial anti-Semitism, not just actual observations about Jewish people. So claiming that there are some type of like insidious plots can be a big part of that anti-Semitic thing, especially plots against your native race, right? So that's a big form of anti-Semitism. So number one, that's a pretty important qualifier. Number two is usually some sort of outward violence, or at the very least state-sponsored violence against ethnic minorities or other undesirables. So for instance, having like a state-sponsored plan to export or kill certain people of certain ethnic groups or certain people of like LGBT persuasions or other types of quote-unquote undesirables, right?
Okay,
and then,
can I ask a clarifying question?
Go ahead.
Does wanting state-sponsored violence count, or you're saying you have to actually act in state-sponsored violence?
No, it'd be the desire for it would make you.
Okay.
Right. And then thirdly is generally Nazis want to build some form of fascist state. So meaning they don't care about fucking democracy. They don't give a fuck about fucking Congress or any shit like that. Like they want a single party, populist ruler, authoritarian, possibly totalitarian, vertical control of society. That's usually what I think of when I'm thinking of like neo-Nazi or Nazi. Those are the things that I'm thinking of. Insofar as that goes, Fuentes' outward positions are not there on, I don't think, on any of those three topics. Maybe a little bit on the third one, but on the first two, that is not his outward positions. So if you were to ask me, is America First a neo-Nazi movement or a Nazi movement? Probably not. I don't think so. Now, are there neo-Nazis in that movement? Almost certainly so. It's a large movement and it's very far right. And I think a lot of the rhetoric can be kind of amenable to those people. And if you ask me, is Nick Fuentes secretly a neo-Nazi? He could be. But that would be my stated positions on those three things. On Fuentes, on America First as a movement, the people in America First, and inside Nick's mind. So where would you go then from there?
I want to ask you just bullet point by bullet point.
Go.
You don't believe that Fuentes engages in conspiratorial anti-Semitism?
I haven't heard it as part of his stuff recently, but I could be shown clips that would convince me otherwise. Let me give a quick example of the two of these things. So if he says something like, I think that Jewish people all tend to vote or push politics in a certain way where they're kind of like, they want to always support Israel, and they're kind of like fucking always looking out for themselves and shit, and it fucks the rest of us over a little bit. I don't think that that rises to the level of Jewish conspiracy. But if he says something akin to like what Lauren Southern used to say with The Great Replacement, where he's like, I think there's a plan where these people are intentionally trying to eradicate white people, then that rises to a level of like Jewish conspiracy.
I'm just saying, based on what you know of him,
based on his recent rhetoric,
based on what you have already heard him say.
Yeah. Based of this, what I've heard recently, but this is something that I could be moved on. Somebody could send me a clip and go, he could say something like, "Oh yeah, Jewish people, I think they're actually really trying to fuck over white people." Like, "Oh yeah,
but okay, so are you saying I don't know, or are you saying so? Like, if somebody asked you about me, they said, "Do you think that Max engages in anti-Semitic conspiratorial thinking?"
No, absolutely. I don't think so. I've never heard you even flirt with the ideas before.
Okay, so at somewhere between me and Nick, or Lauren, us flip switches, or a switch flips, and then you say, okay, now I think you're maybe blah blah. So, are you saying you don't know? Are you saying probably not, yes or no?
He's never brought it up anywhere in a convo with me or alluded to it in a debate that I've seen him have, and I haven't been presented with content. So, but obviously his ideology lends itself towards those types of beliefs. So it's possible, but I wouldn't accuse him of having those beliefs because I haven't heard them. I haven't had them presented to me. I have a lot of people email me about shit that he says and things. Yeah.
Are you not willing to give a one-word answer?
No, not on this. No. And I think asking for one is bad faith. I would make that accusation. Because clearly I don't care.
I think it would be bad faith for me to attack you for not giving one.
Okay.
But I want one, and if you don't want to give it, that's fine.
Okay, what is your one-word question?
I guess the choices I would give you are, the question is, does Nick Fuentes engage in anti-Semitic conspiracies? Or traffic in them?
Yeah, I'd say no, but it would be based on what I've seen so far. My mind could be changed to that. Somebody can send me a clip in it, but as of what I've seen so far, no.
Okay. And then what was the second criteria for being a Nazi? It wasn't fascism, or wasn't dictatorship. It was.
It's usually calling for like violent
pogroms
pogroms and shit like that, and like trying to like put people in camps of like undesirables and ethnic people. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that Nick Fuentes wants to do that?
I haven't seen it. I haven't heard or seen it. It seems like he speaks to the contrary of that a lot.
Will you give a one-word answer?
The answer would be no. I don't think he engages in that. No.
Okay, so no conspiracy, no anti-Semitic conspiracy, no desire for violence against minorities.
Yes. No, as in yes, as in no. Yeah.
Right, got it. Okay. And then the third one is fascism.
Fascism, I'm not as sure, because he says weird shit about how he wants like a Christian monarchy. I don't know what the fuck he means by that, if he's actually sincere on that. I know that his group, he tries to get people to engage with the political system. So like he went up and supported Laura Loomer and shit. He might be illiberal. He might be anti-democratic though. I don't know if he would like lean full into fascism. It seems like he could or would, but I don't hear him talk about forms of government much. It feels like he's mostly concerned with getting his people to engage in the current political system. But he could easily be a fascist, or that's what like his end goal would be. I'm just not sure. I haven't. I don't talk to him about like what his ideal style of government is. And when it comes up, he says Christian monarchy. I don't know what the fuck that means.
Okay, so what's your one-word answer, if you want to give one?
I would say on that one, probably maybe or yes.
Okay. Will you pick one or no?
Is he a fascist?
Yeah.
I think he would be. I'll say yes on that one. I'll give you that one.
Okay, so he's a fascist, but you don't think he meets the other two criteria.
Yeah.
Have you read
I'm saying yes to
Rist's...
fascist because he feels very anti-democratic to me. Yeah. So, okay, go ahead.
Okay. Have you read Rose Rist's quote list?
Not yet. I never read quote lists from anybody for anything. But if somebody wants to give me more substantive stuff, like I'll go through it, but I'm not usually interested in like, here's 50 quotes over the past 6 years.
Okay. A cross-examining question. If your answer to 2 of the criteria are no, why did you say he's basically a Nazi? I think the time before last we talked and on Twitter.
Well, I already told you on Twitter for the purposes of fighting with Lance, because it's funny from the tweet, that if Lance believes that he's truly a Nazi, why is the one joke he would pick out the thing that didn't really have anything to do with Jews? That was stupid. And then I would have to know the context of the other conversation where he was like basically a Nazi.
Okay, so your general stance, it sounds like now, is you're saying he just doesn't meet the criteria for Nazi.
To truly be considered like a Nazi or Nazi?
By you, to be considered, not truly, but by you.
I don't think so. Correct.
Okay. Do you see my concern about the vagueness introduced by using that words in different contexts and different ways to describe him? If he, I mean, even if he's just a fascist, creating a is he or isn't he narrative, do you see how that, I mean, do you see how that helps Trump in a way where then all the people...
No, I see how you think it does, but I disagree with all of that. I think that all of these words are fucked, regardless of my input.
Regardless of your input, do you see how a is he or isn't he a white supremacist narrative helped Trump?
Sure, I can, but I think people calling him a white supremacist helps Trump. I would accuse them more than any of the is he or isn't he people.
No. I'm not saying the is he or isn't he people. I'm saying just the whole narrative around him being confusion around is he a white supremacist. I don't think Trump is a white supremacist, but I think the idea... I think progressives clinging to the idea that he is actually helps him because it really sucks the air out of any criticism of him.
What does? Say that again?
Progressives clinging to the idea that Trump is a white supremacist helps him because there just isn't a lot of evidence that he is, and he doesn't seem like one.
Okay.
Do you see how that confusion around that helps him?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see, from my perspective, that if Fuentes... even if he's just a fascist, any confusion around whether he is a Nazi, and specifically joking or ironic confusion, do you see how that helps him discredit his critics?
Yeah, it could, yeah.
Okay. So, so I feel like if you're saying he's basically a Nazi, if you're jokingly calling him a Nazi, but then if you're saying you don't think he meets the... criteria for Nazi, but he meets.
He's close enough for me to joke about it. Like I might joke about Hassan being a tanky, but Hassan is absolutely not a tanky in any like strict definition of the word. Neither is Vosh, but I might joke about it sometimes.
Yeah, so I'm concerned about you joking about it with him because you're saying he meets the worst criteria. The worst part about Nazis is that they're fascists.
I disagree.
So like if somebody Well, I mean, if somebody wants to kill you, but they're going to vote on it, then, like, that's not that big of a problem. Somebody engages in conspiracy.
Wait, hold on. What do you mean that's not that big of a problem? We were a democracy with slavery for, like, 100 years. Over 100 years. How do you mean that's not that big of a problem? The Democratic Party of the United States didn't keep it from doing atrocities.
Yeah, it's a big problem, but I don't think it's as big of a problem. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Okay. I think that engaging in anti-Semitic conspiratorial thinking. I'm saying if somebody.
What I'm saying is that like there could be like
somebody just wanting to kill you, or wanting the government to kill you. Yes, it's a problem if enough people are unified in their beliefs about that, and then they start voting on it, like something like slavery happens. Yeah, that's bad. But most people in the United States have other people they want the government to kill. I think we're just kind of a bloodthirsty nation, and democracy prevents us from doing terrible, terrible things to each other. So that's what I mean when I say that. I'm not trying to downplay the incidence of racial violence in democratic nations. I'm saying that right now, when I think of, well, what's stopping genocide from happening now, democracy is like the first thing that comes to mind. So I'm not, if I hear somebody has conspiratorial thoughts about Jews or any other race, like, yeah, that's concerning or upsetting, but like a lot of fucking people do. I just don't care that much about that part. I care about it only because of what that person would do if they came to power. But the only reason I care about that is if that person wants to take over the government, which I already know Fuentes does because he fucking tried to do it. He literally tried to overthrow the government, and you're here saying like he might be.
Stop making the emotional appeals. Wait, stop making the emotional appeals. It's super cringe. Don't fucking do that to me. That's because then I'm gonna start crying.
The age of the Giga Chad is over, bitch. I will make emotional appeals. This is an emotional topic for me. I care about my country, and I love my country. When somebody tries to overthrow the government, I get upset about it. And I wasn't making an emotional appeal. I was making a logical appeal. He literally tried to overthrow the government, which you agreed with the last time we talked. And you're saying he's a fascist in a way where you're like, I'll bite the bullet and say he's probably a fascist.
Okay, and I would say that one of the huge contributing factors for how we ever got to that point was people's inability to engage with the other side, and one of those inabilities is the obsession with using words like Nazi, fascist, racist.
It's my fault that Nick Fuentes tried to overthrow the government.
Partially, yes.
Okay.
And that's the thing that I'm trying to get away from, because I can do every single part of my job. I'm going to keep talking because you just talked for 20 fucking minutes, okay? I can do every single part of my job that I need to do as effectively as possible without ever calling somebody a Nazi or a racist or whatever the fuck. I don't need to use any of those words to attack all the ideas, to give people an accurate assessment of what other people believe, and to discourage people from following certain bad ideologies. And I would say that by using any of those words, I'm putting myself at a disadvantage, because just like in a movie, when you use a real life song inside the movie, there might be thoughts or feelings that a listener or viewer has that I have completely lost control over by bringing in that word. So I avoid doing that completely. I only attack the ideas. I only go after people on the merit of things. I avoid all of the extra baggage of all